Call the meeting to order.
Notice of this meeting was given to all board members and associates in a meeting notice dated March 7, 2025. Furthermore, on that date, a copy of such notice was sent to the Times, the Tentonian, and the clerk of the Township of Hamilton. It was also posted on the bulletin board at the entrance to the boardroom in the Hamilton Square Administrative Building. Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Ms. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Kanka?
Here.
Dr. McSheen?
Present.
Ms. Soto?
Here.
Ms. Stanton?
Here.
Ms. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Byrne?
Here.
Dr. Farrar?
Here.
Ms. Thornton?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, so we're going to move into the agenda. So I will start with the superintendent's report. Dr. Rocco, do you have a superintendent's report?
My report will be the tentative budget.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to Board of Education. Any comments? I'll start with you, Dr. McSheen.
No, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Soto?
I just wanted to share that I had the pleasure of reading a book to Science third grade class for Read Across America Week. So I thank them for inviting me. And I look forward to going to Crockett's play tomorrow, their rendition of Grease. So again, I encourage everybody to go out and see the school shows.
Thank you, Ms. Soto. Dr. Ferrara?
I just want to follow up. I went to the Lydia Scholars meeting that Princeton University held, I don't know, a week ago, maybe 10 days. So the portal has opened for applications. This is a program that is going to identify students at West and Nottingham who are first time to college in their family, and there's a whole application process. They should have been notified by their guidance counselors, but if they have questions or they want to apply, they should go and talk to the guidance counselors. But again, Princeton identified West and Nottingham as the two places because those students fit the grant application. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Ferrara. Ms. Stanton?
Yes, just a few schools to thank. I wanted to first thank Sayin. I was a guest at the St. Patrick's Day dance on Friday, which was fantastic. I also wanted to thank the amazing volunteers. There were 2 students from Nottingham that came to work with the children, and they were fantastic. And I also wanted to thank Layler for having me to read to their MD class with Miss White. They were also just great, and I hope to go back and see them again. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Stanton. Ms. Harvey?
Thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to Marta Ordina and her staff for a successful fair last week. I attended, and there were great community members, and it was great to see a lot of parents and to talk to the different service providers in our area about opportunities. So I just want to congratulate the staff for that great presentation for the community. I also will hopefully see Ms. Soto at Greece at Crockett. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Ms. Williams?
I have nothing, thank you.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes, I attended the opening night of, I think it was called Something Rotten, or It's Rotten. It was a very fun production. Very talented group of actors. There was singing, there was tap dancing, the costumes were fun, and it was a really fun night. So yes, it's fun to get to the productions, and I hope that the community does.
Thank you, Ms. Byrne. Mr. Kanka?
I have nothing.
Okay. So I would also like to echo my colleagues and just mention I had the opportunity to attend the community fair. It was wonderful. I know a lot of work and energy went into it, and you could absolutely tell. I want to thank all the vendors and providers that were there. It was a great event, and I'm looking forward to continuing that for next year and years to come. I also had the opportunity to read at Sayin Elementary, and I thank them for the invitation. So thank you. And we will move on to, since this is a special meeting, we do have hearing of the public on school-related matters. Thank you. Okay, so we will start with Kim Squires. If you could please come up to the microphone, just state your name. It's right here.
Right over here.
That's okay.
Hi, I'm Kim Squires. Nice to meet you all. So basically, I had tuned in. I had been watching all of the information and stuff, and I'm a resident of Hamilton. I have 2 young kids that go to Hamilton. They actually go to Robinson, and all of a sudden, for the first time, I was made aware that there is going to be this pre-K building being built on Robinson. I started looking up information, and there's not a lot of information, and in the January meeting was the first time that Robinson was actually mentioned. So I talked to a couple of people that were part of the planning committee, and I personally think that it is a great idea to have a feeder program for younger kids into the pre-K system, but I'm very concerned about a lot of things that go on with this new pre-K building, and I want to know how I could get more involved. I want to know how I could get more answers. I want to know where this sits as far as, is it definitive? Is it going to be built? Like, it's taking away a lot from our kids at Robinson. I'm concerned about the whole structure, the restructuring of the entire school district. There were a lot of concerns that were brought up by teachers on the last meeting. I know that it sounds like we have all this funding coming in, but from what I'm understanding, and I could be wrong, but from what I'm understanding and what I'm reading, it sounds like 40% of it is in grants. Where's the other 60%? And it seems like, again, from someone who is just getting involved with this at this stage, it just seems like it's all for the building of the school, but not supporting it. So where are the salaries from the teachers coming from? Is it a half day? Is it a full day? Where's the parking going to be? I mean, as a parent going to Robinson, I am an active member. I am the VP of the PTA for Robinson, and it is a nightmare in our school in the morning. And if you're going to take all that traffic from Hempstead and push it up to Grop, that's going to create more issues. Parking in the back of the school is difficult. So I want to know a little bit more information, and it's very difficult to find it online, where we are in the process, and, is this something that's definitive? Can I get involved? How can I help? Because again, I think that it's great that we should have a feeder program for our younger children for pre-K, but I'm not in agreement, and many people in our township that go to Robinson are also not in agreement with Robinson being the only school to have an influx of about 1,400 kids coming in. And my concerns are our building is old, the 5th graders are out in in a trailer park right now, like a trailer outside of the school. Our school needs upgrades for electric. We can't even give some of the teachers air conditioning because our electrical system is so old. So I just have a ton of questions. I tried to reach out to somebody, but it was probably too late in the process. So I'm just kind of wondering if you guys can provide some answers for a lot of the people that have questions about all of this, where we are in the process, how we can help Hamilton get to where other school districts are, and how I can have some of my friends that are asking, that couldn't make it tonight, that want to be a part of this to make the school district better in a more positive way. Martine, did I cover everything?
So
I think I covered everything.
So Ms. Squires, I'm actually going to ask Dr. Rocco to address some of the questions that you had and
Wonderful.
possibly get some more information for you.
So just to clarify, we typically take the questions and then respond back outside the meeting. This is a special meeting, so we're going to talk a little bit about this. We started talking about some of the detail last meeting. We're going to talk more about it in the next meeting. But a couple of things. One, I was supposed to come to your PTA meeting, I think it was tonight.
Yes.
Right, and we're having this meeting here, so I told your PTA president,
Yes.
I want to come to a meeting. I've already spoken to the staff once, I'm going back to talk to the staff. We have draft plans that have been going back and forth. A couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, it's its own building. They are connected, but it's their own its own building. So it will have its own office, its own gym/cafeteria, its own classrooms, but they will be connected to each other.
Right, I did see the plans, I did look at the plans, and I mean, it takes up a lot of our back lot, and it takes up a lot of that field in the back.
Yes.
So, I mean, our kids are losing so much space that they play with. I also have a concern for the safety of my children, of parents coming and picking up and dropping off in the middle of the day.
Yeah, and all things that we're talking about and how the playgrounds will be designed and how the green space will be designed. Also, you talk about electrical upgrade. Electrical upgrade for Robinson is one of the items that we want to do. It needs to be done. It needs to be done across the district. It is actually part of our budget this year for money to be funded across the district to do that. How can you be part of that? Well, this is number one, coming to the meeting and asking questions. Number two, we're going to be putting more information out. We are going to have a presentation at the next board meeting by our architect to show you their designs and their concepts that they're going forward with. And we're still working on going through the approval process.
Okay, so right now, it's not 100% approved, correct?
Well, I would say that it's moving along in that way.
Right.
Because we have plans and we have state funding and we have ways to fund it, the construction, so it is moving in that direction.
But it's only 40% of the construction, right? The rest is going to be through grants and bonds that we have to apply for. Is that accurate?
Through funding through the county improvement authority.
Okay, and what if we can't get that money through them? And also, I was trying to figure out through the line item budget, there was something of a $6 million, I can't remember what it was called. What was it called? You're terrible.
Is that in the-
Capital reserve?
No, it wasn't a
that
capital
in the
reserve.
current-
Some money that we owed. So we have to pay back $6 million of a debt, $6 million debt. Is that for the building of Robinson, or did I miss something between
No,
23 and
that's-
24?
We have debt that's coming off that's been part of an old referendum.
Got it. I
So
couldn't
that's-
find those because I know you guys switched to a new
Yeah.
platform where you're holding everything. So I saw 2023 and 2022, 2023, but I didn't see 24. And then 25, 26 had this $6 million, and I'm wondering if that's from the Robinson.
I don't believe it is. It isn't. But we'll be answering more questions as we do the presentations and come out to Robinson.
Okay, and then how, I mean, is there, I hate to be the blunt person, is there any way to stop this? Is there any way to maybe relook at different things and maybe divide and make a feeder program out of the 4 elementary schools and still divide up the other schools and have a smaller feeder program at each of the elementary schools and still do your idea of restructuring?
So the state is offering this money for a limited time to use for construction at 40% of the cost, which is not something that the state typically does. It's usually a much lower rate. So it's going to be a use it or lose it option for the district. It won't be like we can take that 12 million and put 3 million here and 3 million there and 3 million there. for this project in this location for this purpose.
And this has all been decided that, I mean, I don't know who else was involved in these decisions, but I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot of people were knowledgeable about the fact that it was happening at Robinson until January, and a lot of people are really upset about it.
Okay. Well, that's why we're going to have discussion and give more information out to the public, and that's why I'm coming to a PTA meeting and talking to the faculty and talking with community members.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Staler?
Hi, thank you so much. I appreciate the woman who was just here because I think she's articulating the sense of a rush through that many people are feeling. Whether it's a lose it or use it is never a good way to make major financial decisions, let alone decisions for the education of children. But I'm also hearing, because I'm a little bit older, a lot of historic and failed schemes to incorporate political goals that are using the local educational systems for state and federal level control of our community. Your Hamilton Township taxpayers cannot afford non-educational goals or the mountain of political mandates that are being imposed by the state. We can afford to educate our children in the basics of academics, as has been done for generations. But vying for state money and prioritizing the goals of the present administration in Trenton, whoever it may be, is not something that Hamilton should be watching. School boards are by design mandated to vie for the will of the community and the academic formation of children. And boards are not to be manipulated because state money equals state control. And it's obvious that this has not benefited students' education. You see, whether it's in person at a meeting here or online, I have never heard a discussion on how to have Hamilton students meet or exceed grade level standards. I have watched test scores being reported that gave a rosy interpretation of subpar scores. There should be a no vote to every project on state mandates until this current administration of the school can present to the community substantial improvement in the meeting or exceeding of academic standards. And please, I have heard the fear-mongering of firing teachers or teachers being cut, but teachers are to be prioritized. Cut the layer of supervisors or the endless workshops or the many other building projects. There are many concerns that the community sees. There are reasons why there are billboards that are going up that are highlighting the failures of public schools. We don't want failure, we want success. So I'm asking that you please put a pause, as this woman has said, put a pause. It doesn't matter if you lose money. It matters if you lose the children and their success. And turn back to what the school board should be and the administration should be, which is total focus on academic success of children. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that does conclude our hearing of the public, and we're going to move on to transaction and business of our meeting. And Dr. Rocco is going to be giving a presentation on the budget.
We're going to bring the slide down.
So we'll be coming down, and just as a note, if there's any questions after his presentation, we'll be taking those afterwards, okay?
I can't stand that close.
For the one this week.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Hey, good evening, everyone. Tonight is the tentative budget presentation. Last month, we gave a presentation on the main drivers of the budget, and so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this budget, how it was built and what it includes. But I think it's important to understand that this budget is talking about how the future starts now in Hamilton Township, and we have an opportunity when we develop this budget. Last year, we identified a few issues. We have growing enrollment, rising costs, aging facilities, and different student needs, both academic, social, and emotional needs. And as a district, we have an opportunity to address those needs now. We can go the same path that everybody's going and do things the way it's always been done, or we can go in a new direction. And I think this budget talks about going in a new direction and providing opportunities and resources for our students, providing facilities for our community that will last a long time. So how do we address these issues? What do we do as a school district? And how are we going to deal with this inflection point that we have right now in Hamilton Township? So what we need to do is we need to fund these issues now and for the future. So we need to look and plan for the current budget, next year's budget, and the year after that. And when we build budgets, we look at multiple years and what the issues may be today, tomorrow, and 3 years from now. So what this budget is doing is preparing us for next year and the future. And how do we do that? We start looking at numbers. And one of the big numbers that sticks out is this number of $55.8 million. I'm gonna let that sink for a second, because in years past, when I would make a presentation, I would go past this number. What is that number? That number is what the state formulates us as spending under. Under adequate, and the state is saying we should be spending another $55.8 million. So this is their under adequacy formula. And what you can see here in the formula is the number has dramatically increased. So we are at a point where the state is saying, according to the formula, that we are under adequate in our local spending by $55.8 million. And that number may continue to grow. So what does adequacy mean? What's the formula, the concept, and the components? And it's important to understand. So the state of New Jersey says that we have to provide a thorough and efficient education. And when they look at that, they look at the necessary funding level to achieve this goal. And then what they do is they take the budget and they compare the district's local cost share. And the state also provides some equalization aid to bridge the gap between the adequacy budget and the local cost share. What factors into that formula? Per pupil amount, student weights, and those weights are broken down in higher weights for middle school and high school students and vocational students, higher weights for students from low-income families, higher weights for English language learners, and higher weights for special education students. And then it looks at the local cost share, and it looks at equalization aid. Put that all into a formula, and you get adequacy or under adequacy. I'm going to stop for a second. Just ask Ms. Atwood if I described that accurately at this point. She is indicating I have. So that is an issue that we have currently in our budget. So here's the adequacy calculation, and I'm going to take a moment to allow Ms. Atwood to explain what this chart means.
Good evening, yes. So what Dr. Rocco described is that the state creates or calculates what's called an adequacy budget for every district in the state. It's a unique calculation because it's based on the district characteristics of number of students and the type of students that they are, because they are weighted. If they're a high school student, you receive more funding. If they're a ELL or an at-risk student, which is measured by free and reduced, you receive additional funding. There's a base amount that's been calculated based on various inputs of what it takes to create, to provide an education and to achieve our T&E education and our standards. And it calculates an amount for every district based on number of kids and the calculated per pupil amount. You'll see in the 2025-26 column, first line, our adequacy budget in the current year is $299 million. You can see how it was in the previous years, but to follow through with what Dr. Rocco said, then it determines based again on each individual's district's amount that they can spend locally through tax levy. It measures that through equalized valuations and your local income. And the difference between those two amounts is the biggest amount of state aid that we receive, which is called equalization aid. And you'll see it's pretty much the same this year, which is why we did not receive a significant amount of increase in state aid, because while our adequacy budget grew almost 30 million, if not more, so did the amount that this formula has determined that we can raise locally. So how do we calculate how much we're now under our adequacy budget? The state takes that same local share cost that it calculated above, and subtracts out of that, this is the bottom part of the slide, the amount of tax levy we are proposing to raise this year. And that difference is the amount that we are now spending under that $299 million adequacy budget if we raise the amount of tax levy that we are proposing in the budget tonight. You can see that it has definitely increased over the years, and this is the calculation to show it.
Thank you. So with that, we need to look at what factors impact the budget, and then how do we build the budget. So the first factor that impacts the budget is enrollment, and you'll see that our enrollment continues to increase. The yellow lines are our new demographic study, and they show that we're going to continue to increase. The blues are actuals, and although we are not exactly at the yellow lines, we are on the same pace or the same angle. So we will get growth next year again, and we project to have growth. Inside of our growth, and when you look deeper at the numbers, you'll see that not only is our enrollment increasing for students that we educate here, but the enrollment of charter schools is also increasing, and that comes out of our budget. It comes out of our budget to a projection of next year of $9.1 million, and that has increased $3.7 million from 2023-2024. You also look deeper into the numbers. Our ELLs, our English language learner students, have grown from 572 in 21-22 to 1,150 in 24-25, same period of time, February of each year. Our special education classified and speech-only students from 2020 to 2024 have also increased from 1956 to 2143. Although I will say, over that period of time, we've also brought programming in, and we have brought students back from out-of-district placements. However, the cost to educate all children, no matter their ability, has increased. So that gets us to the next thing, rising costs. That also is a factor. So a couple of things that you need to know. A few examples comparing 2018-19 to 2025-2026. Health benefits have gone up almost 52%. Workers' comp has gone up 57.3%. Transportation has gone up 63.8%. Waste disposal has gone up 64%. Property insurance has gone up 67%, and gasoline has gone up 84%. Just like you, with your bills going up, so are the school bills. There are other significant drivers, and some of what I talked about here is built in here. But one of the items is a loss of revenue from pilot money. So we've been getting pilot funding instead of taxes on property that residencies over by the train station, and that ends, and that's $500,000, and that ends this year. We are looking at the potential loss of base federal programs and funding, and we're preparing for that. A projected 20% increase in the electric costs. increase in medical and prescription benefits. We talked about charter schools. We talked about enrollment increases. We talked about special education. We have an increase 3.57 in transportation renewals just from this year to next year. The inflationary costs of all services. We need to address limited space and enrollment growth. We need to continue to work on student academics and social emotional needs. And we have to continue to maintain our buildings. The history of this district was not to maintain the buildings, and then when we have to maintain the buildings, it costs double, triple, and quadruple the price. So we need to address those issues now. And then we need to abide by our contract settlements that we have. Other things that are built into the budget and things that we want to include. So we've included enhancements in curriculum and instruction, and that includes new textbooks. And I'm not going to read all these to you, but you'll see some new AP Bio textbooks, new French textbooks. We're going to expand our Orton Gillingham training and expand our elementary new mathematics program. We're going to continue to update our library and STEAM with resources and equipment. And then we're also going to do our normal musical instrument rotation, which I'm going to talk a little bit later on, and art equipment rotation. So we rotate 2 buildings, 1 middle school and 1 high school every year. Also, we get band uniforms for our students on a rotating basis. And we do provide professional development for our staff because that is how we stay in touch with what students need and improve instruction and learning. At the special ed level, we have our middle school LLD reading curriculum and our MTSS kindergarten tier 1 behavior system. We're also looking to continue our middle school data team implementation and develop our high impact in-class resource room practices. The budget also has technology in it, and this district has done an amazing job over the last 10 years. Our elementary schools, and I say this every year at the budget time, our elementary schools had residential routers in them for Wi-Fi years ago. Now we have state-of-the-art technology because you have to today. That's the world kids live in. That's the world we work in. And so the green is what we're working on. We have a rotation of our devices to make sure that we maintain our one-to-one at the levels where students are one-to-one. We have to replace and update our projector and interactive panels in our elementary schools. We're upgrading our firewalls, our access points, and we're making sure that we have backup when things go down, and we continue to upgrade security. This is just on the technology end with cameras and other technology to enhance it, but we have put a concerted effort, this Board of Education has put a concerted effort into making sure that we provide enough security to make sure that the students and staff feel safe in the buildings when they enter every day. We've also included staffing. Now, what I want to tell you is years past with staffing, we would have more positions that we would be proposing. But we have taken a look at our positions, we've taken a look at our growth, we've taken a look at what we're doing, and we also realized that we didn't get the state aid we thought we might get. And so we only have 3 positions on the table this year: an elementary teacher, a MTSS interventionist, and an HVAC technician. But we've reviewed and we look at our needs as they develop, and right now this is our proposal at this moment. As I said, it's important to maintain our schools just like it's important to maintain your house. And we put a lot of effort into maintaining our facilities. And so this looks like a very busy chart, but I'm going to try and help you read this. So on the left-hand side here, I'm going to talk right away. Our regular operating district grants or ROD grants, 40% of the cost from the state here, but the total cost is listed. We're putting HVAC upgrades at Layler. The whole school is not being AC'd, just large spaces. We've done this at Mercerville. We fixed University Heights and Wilson. They don't have any windows, so that had to be upgraded. So we've done a couple of schools, and we continue to do schools. We have to replace the roofs and coat the roofs at all 3 high schools, including this one, at $8.8 million. We're working on replacing our auditoriums. Right now, you're listening to a sound system that didn't exist last year in this space. Steinert had to rent their sound system year in and year out. This whole setup is from the original, I believe the original setup of this building, and so are the other 2 high schools. Klockner and Galliard are getting electrical upgrades. That goes back, and so there's electrical upgrades on the list for Robinson also, if the project goes through. Security door upgrades, we've budgeted these for this year that they're going to be done in this summer. For this budget year, for summer of this year and summer of next year, another high school auditorium is going to be done. Robinson special ed bathroom is going to be done. Yardville Heights boilers need to be done. Just a side note on this, and I said this to the board, but the boilers have reached their end use. And so they need to be replaced because they can't be repaired anymore. And in a kind of off-the-cuff comment, somebody that was saying that said they're old. They're from 1994. And I said, I graduated college in 1994. It was kind of an odd moment with those being old, but they need to be replaced in the new building. And then another $1 million in electrical upgrades. The lease purchases down below in that same column talk about the instruments and the band uniforms and food service equipment and maintenance and operations vehicles. And we do a lease purchase every year in the district using our capital reserve, which we've been trying to build up for Steinert's bathrooms over by the cafeteria, the third auditorium, and then we would make a deposit for the future for $3.4 million in capital reserve. And on top of that, our tradesmen and women work diligently all year long to maintain our buildings. And so there's $2.3 million on top of their salaries to maintaining our buildings. And then we have our facility strategic plan. The discussion about a new preschool and our high school pool conversions to make instructional space for our students with growing population at the high school. So this is the facility enhancement. The future plans, as I said, a preschool program for our youngest children and the high school pools at Steinert and West, converting them into new learning spaces and open spaces for our students during the day and after school and before school. This would be part of our strategic plan. And we've presented the strategic plan, we've talked about the strategic plan, we've written about the strategic plan, we'll keep talking about it, but I want you to all understand, and those that are watching at home and here in the audience, it's a plan. It's a step-by-step plan. So pieces of this can't be done until other pieces fall into place. One of the items that specifically I've talked a lot about with the community is this new grade configuration. And there are a number of things that would happen across the district over a period of years before any grade configuration would be put in place. But one of the things that we're trying, or a couple of things we're trying to do right now with this budget is electrical upgrades, making space at the high schools, updating facilities so that they are maintained, and that's all part of the strategic plan. So, get into budget development. When we put all of those items in, all the things that we think are necessary, and we start making some adjustments, we get a budget gap of about $8.4 million. And we need to close that gap because you cannot operate on a deficit, right? So our revenues are, you can see our revenues and our expenditures here, leaving us with about $8.4 million gap. With the gap, we get state aid numbers. Those state aid numbers right now are $634,000 increased from what we got last year. Again, you can see how our state aid was stagnant for years and years and years, and it's begun to grow over time. But as Ms. Atwood said, also in those calculations with the state aid is the under adequacy numbers that indicate that that we should be spending more. But this is the aid we got. We are thankful for the aid that we received, and we put that to offset the budget gap. When you look a little deeper into the state aid and you look at transportation aid, we were reduced $123,000, almost $124,000 in state aid, and we received about $5 million in state aid for transportation. But we spend $21.3 million on transportation. In special education, we received $15.2 million in state aid, but we spend $26.7 million in this budget on special education. So how did we close the gap? We got the increased state aid. The state gives us an automatic enrollment growth cap adjustment. We have a healthcare cost gap adjustment that we can take, and we have a banked cap from fiscal year '23. That's on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, we reduced one-time capital improvements. We moved the band uniforms and the technology, some of the technology, into the lease purchase agreement, as I just discussed before, and then we get a balanced budget. So for a second, I'm just going to put that up there for you to take a look. I'm going to sit here for a second so you can see the revenues and the expenditure lines that are balanced. Okay, so tonight, what the board is asked to do for a tentative budget is to vote on these items, and it is the financials behind the budget. But the detail of what that budget means and what we have proposed to spend the budget on is what I just went over. The tax impact. So the estimated ratables are about $8.9 billion. The average household is assessed for 2025 at $217,603. The tax impact per average household per year is $118.83, or $9.90 per month, or $54.61 per 100,000 assessed value. Not what a house is sold for, but what a house is assessed at, which is a lower number. Okay, so that is what the tax impact is that we're proposing. And then the question is, what does that provide Hamilton Township School District and the community? So I think it's a couple of things to be very aware of. This budget that we are proposing has no reductions in staff or programming. The proposed balanced budget, we did that with a state aid increase of less than 1% increase on the state aid provided. And we've reallocated 50% of one-time capital funding from our current year and utilized our tax levy cap adjustments to maintain our programs and our resources and our staff, as I said, with no reductions. But if you look a little further into what this budget provides, the nitty-gritty, it does provide additional staff, 3 of them. It increases our investment in district security, and since 2020, 2021, that's a 200% increase. That is a product of the times and a need in our district. It provides for the device replacement. No longer will we have devices that are 8, 9, and 10 years old that this district had before. It upgrades our district libraries and auditoriums. It begins the process of providing the electrical upgrades our buildings need so that we can prepare the buildings for the future. To prepare the buildings to have an environment where you can have a location that is cool for kids on a hot day and for staff on a hot day. It also provides for a program, and I should have put it earlier in here, but it's a very unique program. It's out of Drew University. I want to thank Dr. Copeland for his work on this. But we have a number of ed assistants who are eligible to go from ed assistant to teacher through a program in Drew University. And it's a grow your own teachers. We have teacher shortages today, and how great would it be to have people that are dedicated ed assistants in our classrooms who are doing a wonderful job and want to take the next step as an educator and get their certification and work with our kids in Hamilton. So it includes funding for that so that we can continue to fill our classrooms with high-quality teachers. It increases professional development. And it increases professional development with the potential of federal funding. And we've considered the fact that some funding may go away. It also provides new curriculum in regular education and special education. And I'm very proud to say, and the board should be proud to say this, and the community should be proud to hear this, because coming to board meetings over the course of a number of years, community members would bring this up. This is the first budget that we're building out right now that's providing our HTEA teaching staff with family medical benefits from day one. That was a huge, huge topic that would come to the table here year in and year out. And it begins to implement our long-range facility strategic plan. So, what else does it do? It aligns with our budget goals. Our budget goals of equity, and to be clear, equity means providing students what they need. Learning acceleration and SEL, providing increased academics and social, emotional, and mental assistance for our students and staff, addressing the learning standards of New Jersey, addressing our infrastructure, safety, and security, and number 5, budget stability. For years, we've been building a budget so it doesn't have large peaks and valleys. We don't add a lot of stuff, the next year cut a lot of stuff. Financially, down the road, budgets will get tighter. We've been building for this, and some of that was addressed this year in this budget. Where do we go from here? Tonight is the tentative budget presentation. The board will make a decision on that. If approved, it will be submitted, and then on April 30th, we'll have our final budget meeting for the board to vote with a submission on the 31st. With that, I will open it to questions on the board.
Dr. Rocco, I'd like for you please to explain to all of us here what you mean when you say reallocates 50% of the one-time capital funding from current year and utilizes tax levy cap adjustments.
Sure, we can do that. So we're going to talk about how we're reallocating, I'm just repeating so people can hear on the mic, reallocating the one-time costs and the tax levy adjustments. So
Correct. So in our current year budget, in the current year, we also received a fairly significant increase in state aid. And we were able to put into our budget, I believe, almost $10 to $11 million in capital improvements. And what we wanted to do in our pre-planning this year was to do that again, not increase further, but be able to do more. You'll see we still have some in, but it's not 11 million, it's about half of that. So for that $5 to $6 million that we were no longer replacing with capital, we were able then to fill the gap of not state aid and fund the increase of salaries and staffing and electrical and all the other things. So that helped us close the gap. In other words, we reduced our spending to put it on something else to maintain our programs and staffing. The tax levy cap adjustments are on the revenue side. We are eligible, one, because every year you don't spend up to what's called the spending cap. You get to quote unquote bank it or save it for 3 years. For the last 3 years, if not more than that, because we lost it last year, we have not spent up to the cap. Even this budget doesn't spend up to the full cap that we could go to. And then you get to bank it and save it. So that one component called using bank cap was utilizing that spending authority, that tax levy we could have raised 3 years ago in FY23 that we did not if you needed to use it again. And we're going to use it this year to close that gap again from the lack of revenues that you saw. The other adjustment is automatic. The beginning one, which we've gotten probably the last few years, is the state, under the state formula, doesn't even calculate the base 2% until it gives you an enrollment adjustment if you're growing. So because we are growing, they have a standard calculation that then they will adjust you're basically adjusted up almost $750,000. And then that plus our levy last year times 2% is your base cap to start with. It's called the automatic enrollment adjustment. So just with that, we were able to go up 2.6%. And because the state health benefit plan is going up 14%, we are not, because we are self-insured. It's one of our big changes we did in our current year. We are not budgeting that full amount. But under the law, recognizing healthcare costs go up so significantly, every district is permitted to again go above your tax levy cap for the amount over 2% to how high the state plan is going. Now, we're not going up 14, we're going up, I think I projected 8, actually we were told higher, but we only need to budget up to 8 because we saved so much in the current year. So our growth is not as much. And that's what's called the healthcare adjustment. So all of those adjustments are abilities to go above 2%, automatic enrollment adjustment, healthcare adjustment, and then cap that unspent taxing authority from FY '23 that we want to apply this year. That helped us raise more revenue because, as you saw, we lost $500,000 in pilot money. We only received $600,000 increase in state aid, and you can do the math on some of those big numbers. There's a lot more increases. And then on the expenditure side, we reduced the expenditure budget by saying, hey, or our original proposal, which is why the gap was so much bigger, we reduced it by about $5 million and applied it to fund our base programs and services. And that's probably a long-winded, I hope I answered your question.
Right, so can we put it like in plain English?
Oh, geez.
These adjustments allow us to raise higher than 2% of taxes. Is that what you're telling us?
Partly, yes.
Yes, the first one is the automatic one. So the state gives us the budget, says we can go up 2.6. That's automatic. And then because we're raising healthcare costs, but not as high as the state plan, it allows you to budget to adjust the difference of that. That's $2 million. And then it allows you to use bank cap. We're only using 1 year.
Okay, and the bank cap, is that actual dollar amount? Or is it a nebulous someplace?
It's a flat out dollar amount. It's the difference between what we could have raised in taxes to cap and what we didn't.
And so then now we can raise it now because we didn't before. Okay.
I'm going to ask board members first, and then I'm going to come to the public, okay? Board members, any questions? Now I can come over, sorry.
So how much per student would you put in?
How much, I'm sorry?
Per student spend would there be?
Per student, we don't have that do we have that calculation yet per student?
There is I'll look it
She's
up.
going to go through the listing
There's
for
a
you.
per pupil cost.
While she's looking
report.
that up, are you okay if I go to another question?
I have one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
So, just want to make sure I understand. The state is basically saying that Hamilton Township is not spending enough or charging enough in taxes to.
That's what the under adequacy formula says. And that is why over the years, we've put the number up and we've kind of put it up, talked about it for a moment and moved on, but the number ballooned this year. And I think it's part of the presentation, and anybody that follows the presentation year after year after year would see the significant growth. And so we thought it was important to explain to you what that means and what are the variables associated with that formula.
I was going to ask, so how do we compare to other districts in the states as far as that
I only know anecdotally that I think a little less than half of the districts spend under adequacy and most spend over. Certainly there are, in Mercer County, there are several that spend over.
Yes. Yep.
Something that jumped out at me, this might be a little more direct question. On an earlier slide, you showed rising costs like gasoline, transportation,
Yep.
waste disposal. Workers' compensation,
Yes,
that went up like 4 to 15%.
that's correct.
Why is that?
There's a number of factors. Insurance is going up. Also depends on if there are injuries, length of time people might be out. There's a number of things. I think, are there other factors besides that?
It's mostly an industry-driven increase too. And no, that was
3 years, I
from
believe.
2020-21.
That's a 3 or, yes. There you go.
I used to work in workers' compensation, and that's usually, these are teachers or
This is the entire district, across the district.
all across the district?
This is workers' comp for the entire district, yes.
So these are lawsuits.
No, they're not, you said they're not lawsuits. This is workers' comp, this is workers' comp, the rate we pay, correct?
Claims, yes, that's what they are. By employees of the Hamilton Township School District.
That's correct.
It's what we have to pay to insure us to cover claims for that are filed, which, they pay for their portion of their salary when they're on workers' comp. If you understand workers' comp, you know that. so that we get insurance such that if somebody is eligible, that the insurance will pay for those claims. Their salary.
Yeah,
Yes.
2018, 19, and 25, 26. I don't have a comparison of that.
I'm just curious about the workers' compensation.
Mhm.
Just, I know that's,
Yeah, no, that's okay. Have our staff grown over 5 years? They have. They have grown over 5 years, but I can't tell you the actual reason why or if it's standard increases after year over year based on claims.
Our total cost on workers' comp is 1.5 million for the district. So you're not, 1.5 million. So we're not talking about a huge part of the budget, but it was a good indication of benefits in general, whether it's property insurance, health benefits is obviously much larger, millions and millions we pay for that.
so that's for 5 years, but that's not really that significant
From a dollar perspective, no, whereas health benefits is significant. Because that's 40 million, I believe, is our health benefits. It was examples of the type of costs. Transportation is 20 million. Obviously, gasoline is not huge here. It was just example. I'm still looking for that per pupil when I went to workers' comp when you asked that, so sorry.
That's okay. Yes, sir.
You know where
I think there's an awful lot of question. And unfortunately, this is not on the microphone, so nobody does.
No, I'm going to repeat it if you want,
Okay,
or
well,
I'll stand closer to you. How's that?
there's a comedian by the name of Henny Youngman. You ever hear of him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he used to have a routine where he would say, people come up to me and say, how was your wife? I'd say, compared to what? Okay, so you're running a $300 million organization here, almost, $280 million of our money that you're going to spend. $280 million is all tax money. So whether it comes from the state or it comes from Hamilton Township, unfortunately, Hamilton Township is part of the state, and we're part of the federal government, and that's all tax money. So it really doesn't matter that much to the taxpayer where that money is coming from. It's coming from us. So the big question is, as other people have said, compared to what? So the basic question at the beginning would be $280 million divided by the number of students, cost per student. Compared to what? Compared to what it was last year and the year before that. What's the trend? Compared to other comparable school districts. Are we above what they're spending or are we below what they're spending?
And testing scores, are they going up, or are they going down?
All of that, all of that.
So,
Now,
so what's your question?
I'm on a board of a charitable organization, it's a $3 million budget. And I don't know what the school board knows about all this, but we have a board of about 10 people, and we just grill these numbers. Every time we get together, not just once a year, but every time we meet, we go over these numbers, and it's like when my wife goes over my visa bill. It's line by line. Okay, what did you spend that on? Why is it more this year than it was last year? So what are we doing here? There's nobody here, and there's nobody listening at home. Was there 10 or 20 people that might be watching this? So there's a big failure here to communicate right from the get-go, and that's the board's responsibility.
Do you have a question, sir?
The community is not here.
Do you have a question?
I have a question, is
Okay.
what are you going to do to change all of this so that when we sit through one of these presentations, we have the kind of information we need to make, consent of the governed, informed judgment of what you're doing here.
Okay. All right. Well, we're trying to provide you the numbers and information that you need to make a decision.
So can I expect to get the cost per pupil?
That's what we're looking at right now.
Cost per charter school students, since we seem to be still negative about charter schools, and the comparison to other school districts and over time here in Hamilton.
So let's have
All of that is actually posted on the state website. There's such a thing that used to be called a comparative spending guide. You can go up and you can see what everybody is spending over the years per pupil, charter schools and everything. I don't have.
Find anything on the Hamilton website.
I don't have that in front of me, but I can tell, well, this chart that I'm looking at,
Can, Mr. Muka, Mr. Muka, could she answer the question, please? Could you wait a minute and let her answer the question, please?
this chart on Hamilton is up under the budget information, and every year, at least 10 years, it's called the advertised per pupil cost calculation. I'm just going to give you what this year's is, but it has several years. You can go each budget year and you can pull it out. And the summary to compare to other districts, I wanted to say, is on the DOE website. 18,432 is the proposed budget cost per pupil.
What was it last year?
Our budget was 17,733 proposed.
Yeah. Sure.
No, I mean, I've expressed what I think the school board should be asking questions about themselves before you even bring the public into this presentation. And it would be helpful as a courtesy to have these slides before we come to this meeting, so that we have a chance to think about it and maybe even go to the state website and do a little research. But you're going to vote on this and you're going to approve it.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
That's all right.
my questions are a little more direct, they're not as broad, but, anyway, like this might be a little bit more broad though. Because I keep hearing stuff about the charter school. I don't know a lot about charter schools. What is the negative of the charter school?
The negative on this chart is that the funding for the 506 projected students, which totals $9.1 million, is coming out of our budget.
So the charter school costs
The students that go to charter schools, we will pay $9.1 million out of our budget. There's a couple of them, so you've got a couple of them in the area, a couple that are in Hamilton and surrounding areas that kids can go to.
And so our tax dollars are paying for these?
Yes, yes.
And it comes out of what you would be getting?
It comes out of our
So
budget.
if we weren't paying for these churches,
It would come, well, the district would get the money. Yes, correct.
why you guys don't like the churches?
That's,
I'm assuming.
well, that's one of the reasons why, that's a budget driver. $9.1 million is a budget driver in our budget, so that's something we have to mention to the public.
And, but I also, my understanding is charter schools are public schools,
They're public
so
schools.
they are private.
No, they operate independent of us. They operate independent of us. They have a charter to operate, and that charter is issued by the Department of Education.
And they're state approved,
Yes, that is correct.
so our charter schools are state approved.
That's correct.
So we have to, I mean, why do people choose Southern?
There's a lot of choices why they choose. Depends on what the parent's interest is, location, a lot of different reasons.
I mean, I've talked to a couple students who go to what I think is the new Mercer ride, because they recently left one of the private schools here. They're like freshmen. I asked a couple of them just how they liked it, and they said they loved it. But I'm hearing a lot of it like taking away from, the public school, but I'm just wondering why, there's so much negativity about charter schools here.
Well, I think in any community where there's a charter school and it has to be budgeted, there's a concern that those funds that could be used in the district, the public school, could be used here for other things. So that's the conversation we're having.
So even though the public school kind of operates as a charter school?
Well, it operates as a public school under a charter from the Department of Education. So, and they can only accept students in a certain area. Okay. Before I get to you, there's a hand back here, okay?
Multiple charter schools in multiple districts that are feeding into, but Hamilton pays the $9 million is just a portion
Correct. That's correct. Other townships, and just in one area, it could be Hamilton and Trenton, you pay for the students for your town. That's who you pay for. Correct. 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 That's accurate. Ma'am, you had a question? Sure.
Just a quick question, since charter schools came up, is there a place that we can see the scores of the children that are attending the charter schools?
They have to put that up on their website.
So if
They don't operate through us.
it is a public school, will we make something on the Hamilton site or
They have,
some way so that we can make that?
we have nothing to do with them.
It might be something that you can bring up to them so that we can have that information, since it is taxpayer money, it should be open and access.
We can make the recommendation to them, but charter schools, they post what they want to post on their website. I can't say that they are or are not going to do it. I don't want to say one way or the other. But we could make a recommendation.
There may be a bridge for we to be able to communicate with
Sure.
them and say that the public would like to have that information.
Sure.
So we can see the comparison.
Sure.
The models and what is working and what's
Sure.
not working.
Absolutely.
And then I have a question from Ms. Appler. I think that you said that on the amount of money that is expected to be spent by each district, that maybe less than 50% of the districts in New Jersey are choosing to meet that number? Is that correct?
This is an anecdote.
In other words, there are some districts who do not abide by the number they have.
Correct, and this isn't the question is, are you required to meet the adequacy budget? No district is required to meet it. It is just the measure the state uses to fund us and measures how much you locally can raise, would have to raise to be able to meet it. From what I understand, about a little less than 50% are like us and spend under adequacy.
So it kind of makes one think that there's an opportunity here to either go by a state government or by the community. And the community is telling you, you can't bear the cost. The community is saying, we would like to see a better product than what we're paying for. The community is bringing it, okay? Because a school district product, I hear you, it is very well presented in a business manner, but a school is a school and the product is the education outcome of the children.
I agree with you.
So when we are looking at the outcome of the educational outcome of the children, we are not seeing what we did in generations past or in comparison to the rest of the districts in the state, or even nationally if we wanted to take a national look. We're not seeing that. So the product is not matching what we are paying for. And if I was looking at an IT company, or if I was looking, at some, I would say that this vendor is not working for us. We need a different approach.
So I think,
The approach may be that the community, leaning toward the community's concerns and standards and ability to fund may be a better way than the constant mandates that are very political from the state. We may need to do a shift over to what the community is asking, because honestly, that's what a school board is. A school board is to reflect what we say. It's non-political, and it is to take the will of the community for the education of the children.
I would say, I agree with a lot of what you're saying in the sense of the importance of an education and making sure our kids get what they deserve. And part of that is making sure that they go to school with the right facilities. Part of that is making sure that their teachers are prepared to teach them every day. And part of that is understanding that children don't always come to school with the same ability or needs as every other child. And then I would say this, you're right, our scores have not been what I want them to be, and I've said that publicly. But I will tell you this, there is growth in learning. And so we can track, and we have presented and we have shown that our students are growing in their learning. It may not necessarily yet be where we want it to be, but we keep doing that and working towards that and making sure that our kids are going to achieve and be successful. And I would also say this, it's not hurting our kids to go to college, career, military, or the trades. Our kids go on to be engineers and doctors and scientists and everything else. My kids came here to this school district and 2 of them are engineers. So no, lots of them can. No, equity would mean that every kid gets what they need. Every kid gets what they need. So I won't debate you on this, but what I will say is I will agree with you with this. Can we do better to make sure that our kids are performing better? Absolutely, and I think that's what your question is, and we will continue to try and do that. We're doing it right now.
And money from the state, and there's got to be a radical change of thinking than what we are doing for the last 40 years or 50 years of waiting for the state to tell us what to do, rather than the community to tell you what to do, and to bring the children as the focus. Children. So not preschool, not bringing anything else in until we get the core curriculum right.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Yes, Dr. McChee.
Like something just based on this conversation. I think it's constructive, so I appreciate it. I think just a few weeks ago, we had our public board meeting, and I think a wonderful presentation about our multi-tiered student service
Systems of support.
Yeah, support interventions, which is an innovative way, in my opinion, and I think the board's opinion as well, in general, of finding where students are, tracking them over time, helping them with things they need, whether that be a particular person, instructor to help them, or a certain program, and then monitoring that progress over time. Which I think is what this conversation is, right? It's really difficult to look at a snapshot and say, these test scores this year are failing us. And I think what we really need to do is track it over time to see whether or not we're doing better and better. And I think what we heard in this budget tonight, part of it was addressing some of those needs to make it incrementally better in ways that I personally support as a board member. I'm not going to say who does or doesn't. And part of that isn't, we talked about school safety. Obviously, facilities are super important. My kids go to this district, so I think a lot of us in this room are really cognizant of that. I enjoy seeing our new security guard at our school every morning. It's nice to see him there. And I think it's a little disheartening to me to hear that the view from, I'm not trying to be negative, right, but some views might be that this is all politically driven or this budget is just going up so that we can spend money. When I see that my family is benefiting, the students in their classes are benefiting, that we have, obviously we saw there's been like a double in, basically a doubling in the student population size of
Language learners.
Right? Who needs that were not nearly addressed in the 90s or 80s or decades past. So I think, as we go on, doing something different, that's great. I totally agree, because doing the same thing year, you're not reaching what we need to reach. And I think, we look at the budget now, we as a board have to decide whether or not this is a step that we want to move in, if it is a productive way. I personally think it is. And, I'm happy to have other discussions with other people, and I know this isn't supposed to be a back and forth. So apologies if it seems confrontational, but I just wanted to offer another kind of point of view there.
Thank you. Can you, Mrs. Harvey?
I just wanted to make a comment. Last year, we had an issue where we added tutoring into our budget. And members of the public might not see it in action, but students in my children's elementary school got letters if they were at a certain level on those test scores that they're saying we need to improve. They all had the opportunity to have tutoring from the school so they could bring those test scores up this year.
Yes.
That happened. That was something that we added to the budget.
Correct.
And I think that the community should be aware that we have taken effort, and those types of funding have been included in this coming budget so that students coming out of COVID
Correct.
can have opportunities to be tutored and raise up to that level and improve their scores. So I think it's important for people who aren't parents to understand we are doing that as a district, and we are committed to making sure that our students learn and the best education possible.
And thank you for reminding us of that. Also, on top of that, we're building out a period at the high school when we go to block scheduling to assist students during the day with their academics, because a lot of students can't come early and can't stay late. And so there'll be time for students to get extra help, get tutored from teachers and peers so that they can move forward academically. I'm going to say last question, if that's okay.
So yes, you are 100% correct. My children do partake in that program, and I am grateful for that program. I think that, Robinson does a very good job of identifying when students are struggling. They do a great job of putting them in a program where they either are in a specialized reading program where they have pulled out, or a math program where they have pulled out. And once they graduate from that, they do that morning tutoring. Where I see some holes is 30 minutes in the morning, twice a week, may not be enough for some students, right? We have some issues where when the kids get there, they're supposed to start at 8:15, but they don't really get in to do things until 8:20. So now you're talking, instead of 30 minutes, you're talking about 20 minutes. Here's what I see, what I'm gonna throw out to everyone in this room, which I've heard nobody say. What can we do as a community to help the board? What can we do as a community to help the teachers? What can we do if we're pissed off about the taxes, if we don't understand something? What can we do to help? What can we do to make this better? What can we do to support? I haven't heard anybody that complains about anything say, please, how can I help? I'm here to say, please tell me how I can help the board. Please tell me how I can help our teachers. Please tell me how I can help my children get a better education. That's what I would like to know. What can I do to help?
Yeah, I'll just quickly mention, as part of the board, we have the district community relations committee, which we mention every public meeting. I'm not saying everyone always hears about it. I know it's really hard to.
And I did participate in that, by the way.
Thank you.
I did participate in it. Unfortunately, I didn't get anywhere with it. It wasn't like, I wasn't finding any benefit of where I was helping. We were talking about crossing guards, which, yes, are important, but where everybody is complaining about here is education, teachers,
Sure.
budget. Well, how do we get to where we need to be? What can we do as a community to pull together and help? This is not a good representative of our community.
Correct.
We have to do a better job. How is the government going to help those things we're discussing right now?
And sorry, not to jump back in, but as part of DCR, we look for people who want to be champions of a particular cause. So if you have something like that you want to bring, that we can help you really more cement ideas to bring to Dr. Rocco and the rest of the administration, that's what we're looking for. So feel free to contact her or do whatever. That's just one idea. Also coming here, talking to the floor. I think those are all good ideas.
So I'm going to, last comment, and Mr. Muka.
I just want to say, on behalf of, I think, all of us here, we're not your enemies, and I'm very critical sometimes. But I want the schools to succeed, and I'd love to go out in the community and explain to people, we got to raise the taxes because these are all the great things that are going to happen. Well, you gotta give me something to work with, that when I talk to any other business person or anybody who's running a household is gonna say, no, you wanna do away with the pools and make it into classrooms. Exactly how much does that cost? How much is it gonna cost to put all these kids together in Crockett? And
Sure.
okay, so there's the
So-
cost, here's the benefit, now let me be the salesperson and be out in the community for it.
So a couple of, so a couple of things. We gave you the per pupil cost. Ms. Atwood just looked up, but before I give you the last number as we close out, Dr. McSheen is right. The DCR is a committee, if there's a priority where you're focused on and you want to come and talk, come to that meeting. That's what the purpose of that meeting is. We purposely held it here tonight to hope to get people from there in here. Dr. McSheen came. Dr. Copeland probably was there too. So I'm going to give you the last number. We'll close on this. So you asked for the per pupil. We gave you the per pupil. Then I think somebody asked for what is comparative spending to like districts. So you just looked this up. There are 96 districts that are comparable to us. Is that correct? We are the 5th lowest spending. Is that accurate?
Based on the most recent comparison that's on the state website.
So out of 96 comparable districts, according to the most recent data that was looked up, that's off the DOE. It's off the DOE website. We are the 5th lowest spending.
Yes, it's K through 12, and then over 3,500 students.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate.
So at this time, I'm going to move on to transaction of the business. If I can have a motion to move section D.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Harvey, can you read the motion for section D? My apologies, I'm having technical difficulties with my computer.
I actually think it might be our Wi-Fi went down because my computer's taking.
Have you got it? I've got it.
Dr. Farrar, do you have?
I have it.
Thank you.
Whereas pursuant to NJSA 18A:7F-5 and NJSA 18A:7F-6, school districts must prepare an itemized budget and submit the budget to the Executive County Superintendent, Mercer County, for review and approval. And whereas the Hamilton Township Board of Education has prepared an itemized budget for the 2025-2026 school year in compliance with the statute, therefore, be it resolved that the tentative budget be approved for the 2025-2026 school year using the 2025-2026 state aid figures, and the Secretary to the Board of Education be authorized to submit the following tentative budget to the Executive County Superintendent of Schools for approval in accordance with the statutory deadline. Do you want me to read what's in the in the grid too?
We did show that on the slide, but
We did,
for-
does that need to be read? That needs to be read? No?
Okay.
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
And do I need to continue under the grid? No?
Yep, so I'm going to open it up for any comments or questions to the board. I'll start with you, Mr. Kanka.
I would just like to say, there are a lot of drivers in this budget that we have no control over, such as operational costs, salaries, health benefits, insurance costs. And as everybody knows who owns any type of a property or a home or rents or anything, your costs are going up, the district's costs go up exponentially. We did make a big move last year to try to save money with healthcare by going self-insured, which was a big help for us in trying to keep the costs down. But it's just, there's a lot of, even with transportation, we can't control these numbers. These are numbers that are put out to a selected few vendors in this district that really just hold our purse strings in their pockets. So we're even trying to make a move into that to try to be more self-sufficient in our transportation. But these things take time, and a lot of our costs, like I say, they're uncontrolled. How does that reflect on the cost per pupil, and how does that reflect on how our students are performing? It doesn't, because that's all controlled within the confines of the classroom. So when the costs go up, those obviously, the cost per student goes up, and everybody has the mindset that the more we spend, the better the students will be. That's not really the case. The case is it just creates a higher number per student based on costs that we can't control. So that being said, I mean, when I first got on the board, our transportation costs were $3 million. There's $21 million this year. When I first got on the board, we were on a 10-year rotation with technology, and we were so far behind in our technology advancement. It just cost us millions and millions of dollars just to get caught up to where we're on basically a 3-year rotation now. Because as you know, and I know, that technology changes. You buy computers nowadays, and they're already obsolete in 1 year. So we had that challenge we have, that we just can't control that challenge. The only thing we can do is try to keep up with the challenges, and the easier we make it for the staff, the more we go into this paperless era. As you all know, 10 years ago, we were getting paper report cards. We don't do that no more. So, the district is trying to find ways to save money based on the use of new technology. So, it is what it is with the budget. We have big drivers on prescription drugs. Like Mrs. Atwood said, they're preparing for a 14% increase. When you spend $10 million on a prescription program, a 14% increase is a big number that we have to try to absorb into this budget. So if you sit down and you actually sit and do all the calculations and find out what's driving the budget, you'll understand that a lot of the stuff this board has no control over. We just have to try to figure out ways to absorb it, or try to reduce the burden on the district by going out and looking for other alternatives, which we do every single year in the finance committee. We're always talking about ways to try to save money so we don't have to reduce staff to pay for this stuff. We want to make sure that our students are in a classroom of 20 or less, to make it more efficient and more for the teachers, to make it so they can spend more time with each individual child. But, you know, it all costs money. And unfortunately, when Dr. Rocco showed us the difference in the adequacy, I mean, I'm like, what just happened here? We were at 20 million, and now we're at, and now we're at 30, or we're at 55 million. And it's all based on the demographics of the district. Household income was the biggest driver of that. When the household income goes up, that cost goes up, and that's how the inadequacy is given to us by the state. $57 million is a lot of money for us to lay on the taxpayers, and I won't do it. But the state is sitting there saying, listen, you got to do it. This is what you're supposed to be spending. So, you know, they're basically saying, just because you're not giving us, you're not doing a good enough job, or your students aren't doing a good enough job, they're blaming it on us for not spending enough money, which we all know it doesn't work that way. You could spend $50,000 per child in this district, but that's not going to change anything. Money isn't a driver for education. Commitment by the families and the staff of this district is a driver to increase those scores in this district. And until people recognize that, then we're just going to be sort of spinning our wheels here with these test scores. And people seem to have forgotten that, you know, a couple of years ago, we went through a pretty nasty pandemic here, which put probably two or three classes behind schedule. And that was also a big driver in these test scores. We have kids that went through homes, they were trying to learn at home remotely, and with the schools being closed, and it was just a terrible, terrible time. And we're trying to catch up with this, and it's going to take time to catch up. I mean, my own family, I have my fourth grade grandson seems to be smarter than the 14-year-old. So, because he went through that pandemic thing. I'm not trying to put him down or anything. It's just kids have a hard, and if anybody, let me revert back. If anybody has ever been self-employed and tried to work from home, it's very, very difficult to work from home. Just like it is difficult for these kids to try to learn at home. They're better off in a more structured environment when they go to school, and we try to educate them. But trying to learn at home, you know, when you're sitting there in your pajamas and you got the doors open and the windows open, and there's stuff going on outside. Kids are looking here, they're looking there. It's not the same as being in school, and a lot of these kids have really suffered in that 2 or 3 year period. So, and I agree. You know, you put the money out, you want a good product. Well, you know, we need help at home, and we also need help in the school. And if there's no reinforcement at home, and I understand there's a lot of parents, both parents work for a living. You know, you go to work at 8 in the morning, you come home at 5, 6 o'clock at night, and the last thing you want to do is you want to sit down and do homework with your kid. But we need help, and we need help from home, and we need help when we're trying to get the help in school with staffing. Over the past 10 years, we reduced classroom sizes to try to help that with the teachers. But you know, we'll see what happens. It's something that's going to take time, but unfortunately, costs have gone up. Even when we try to do a construction project, it's just that the cost of getting construction material, it's ridiculous. I would say there's been probably a 40 or 50% increase just in costs in materials, not alone the timeline that it takes to get materials. So, you know, you used to be able to go and get everything over an 6-8 week period. Now we're talking months. We're talking 25, 26 months to order anything and get it in, to get it here. So a lot of these projects got to be pre-planned, and then you have to make sure that you get this stuff ordered so we can at least have it. There's a lot of delays, there's a lot of costs, and I just think that we unfortunately, we got to be patient at this time. And I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Kenka. Ms. Byrne?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to say that nobody sits on this board because we want to skimp on the kids, the teachers, and especially the education, right? We are all here invested because we care about our community and our students and the education that they're getting. However, I think we also have an obligation to take a good hard look at how we are spending our money. And I think one of the people who's no longer here, I think she was trying to pose the question, what would the budget look like if we didn't go ahead with that preschool? Because I don't know what you are all hearing from the community, but there's a lot of buzz where people have a lot of concerns. I mean, as a board member, I haven't seen a traffic pattern layout, how that's going to work. So I do ask that question, if there's an alternate, budget. And as a resident here, it will be 28 years for me in April. When we first purchased our home, my taxes were almost $8,000. Now it's almost $18,000. So we have people in the community on fixed budgets. And yes, our costs are going up, but I think we have to also ask that hard question, are we going to continue to raise taxes every year? Unfortunately, we're not getting people to come out to the meetings, which is so disheartening and disappointing that either we're not putting it out on Instagram or people don't know, or maybe people don't care, enough to really come to these meetings. But when they get their increase in their taxes, they're going to care, unfortunately. Money talks, yes. And, this comparison of is the product what we're spending? That's not how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it like, will I be able to retire here in Hamilton? Will others be able to retire? And I've heard that senior citizens can cap their taxes. However, somebody sent me that link. It's not a given. It's there's a lot of prerequisites, it's income-based, and there's a lot of checks and balances with that. I spoke to a senior the other day who was denied to cap their taxes. So for me, it's a hard question as to, people are struggling. We're becoming like another California here in New Jersey, where we're spending exorbitant amount of money. And while I understand the drivers and I understand what's driving, I also want to ask the hard question of what, if anything, can we take off the table so we're not passing this burden onto the people who live in Hamilton? Because if it continues to raise and raise and raise with our taxes, we may have some things that we're offering to our students, but we're also going to be driving a certain percentage of people away from Hamilton. They're not going to be able to live here. I have grown children who cannot afford to live here. So those are things that are pressing in my mind. And as a board member who, like I said, I want our students to succeed. I ran for this board because I believe in the education of all the children of this community. But it is a tough thing every year to say we're going to keep raising taxes and raising taxes. And yet I understand what's going on, just to be given the chance, we're going to raise it this much or this much or this much. Well, how about we're not going to raise them at all? And is that a possibility? Because I have to ask that. There's so many people, that's who I hear from. Why our taxes keep going up. So I have to say that publicly. Like, what is it, is there something we can do so that we're not raising the tax?
Ms. Williams?
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to say that I definitely very much appreciate everybody who did come out and the collaboration that we had. And it was a good conversation, and I think it's one that we definitely need to continue. The parent that had asked, I believe her name was Kim, asked, what can we do? I mean, honestly, it is disheartening, as Ms. Burns just said, that we don't have more people in the audience here, right? To me, I don't know what we want to engage with as many people as possible. I mean, when we do different things and there's different things announced, I mean, the parents, we rely on the parents and the community at each of the schools when we have board meetings or anything. Everything is posted. We do try to reach out to as many people as possible. But, I think it was Dr. Machine, you had said that the DCR meeting was here. We were hoping to drive people from that meeting in here. They went home, right?
Not that
Some
many
of them,
people showed up?
not that many people showed up. So we try, I mean, maybe the community can help us, the parents in the community can help us figure out better ways to try to engage with the community, partner with us and be an extension of us and just try to, get the excitement, rallied up behind the parents in the community, because we would love to have every seat here filled, and I understand that not everybody is going to always agree with everything that's going on, and it's totally fine, but that's why we're here to talk about it, right? And as far as the budget tonight, it was a very good overview presentation, Dr. Rocco, so I thank you for presenting. I really think that, and I know everybody here understands costs are going up, right? I mean, we have to be living under a rock if we don't feel that at home. So honestly, with the school board, we have 24 schools in our district, all huge buildings, all servicing children that rely on us for their education, right? I cannot echo enough what Mr. Kanka said. There's so many drivers that go into it. And there's a lot that we hear at the board. I mean, a lot of this is just fixed. The budget, there's certain things that we cannot change. Transportation costs, they've gone up astronomically. There's nothing we can do. We can't say that we're not going to use transportation, public transportation. We have to, and as far as, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't raise taxes every year, right? I mean, I don't think that we have an increase in taxes every year.
It has raised, but
Yeah.
not always at the
Okay.
2%.
Right. And I also wanted to make sure that we're on the same page, that the adequacy number that the state gave us, we are not going by that. We're trying to not do that. Otherwise, if we did go by that number, then our taxes would increase astronomically. So I really think, and I appreciate, Dr. Rocco and his team making sure that we didn't have to go that far. Like, to me, that's a compromise, because the alternative, in my opinion, we have children in this district, right? We want to see every single one of them succeed. I do understand that when you look at test scores, and if people are, actually, if they're just going by that, then yes, you're going to say absolute. And by the way, everybody, even in our day jobs, everywhere you go, we all have room for improvement, right? None of us are perfect, right? It's what we do. We strive to improve each and every day, each year. But we cannot continue to do that if we don't have a budget that's going to support the children that we serve and the families we serve. We definitely need more. We need more support from the parents at home. There is, we are trying to do the best that we can with the resources that we have. But if the costs continue to go up, we have to respond to that. Because just as many people out, in the audience that are upset about test scores, we have to learn to do more of the proactive instead of reactive. Because if we're going to continue to, only try to do something when test scores are down, I mean, we're trying to, the 21st century, we need pre-K. We have a huge, a community of rising students that not everybody is getting, when you talk about equity, not every child is getting the same support at home. So when they come into kindergarten, or even, and on and on and on, first grade, second grade, third grade, a lot of and to no fault of their own for most of them, right? They're stretched too thin, they're working 2 and 3 jobs, and they just, some of them, I mean, when my fifth grader was bringing home math, I couldn't help them, because I didn't know. So my point is that even the parents sometimes are struggling to help their children, but we're doing the best we can. We're trying to partner with each and every one of them as long as they try to reach out and partner with us as well. So I know that we're going to continue to try. We're never going to not try, but we definitely need the community's help. And we definitely have to keep striving to go further. We need to start today to move forward into the future. And the only way we're going to do that is if we recognize that. I think that, Ms. Atwood, you said that we're like in the 5%, right? Of like, we're not even spending the money that the state is telling us. And even though the state is telling us, so what, right? That's what a lot of people say, so what? But if you compare us to the other school districts, we're trying our best. It's less than $100 a year that we're even proposing. And I know that less than $100 a year could mean something to somebody. And I'm not saying that it doesn't, but for the amount of increases in everything, the costs that are rising, it's almost like, okay, like we need to do this for our children, for our kids. Because if it's not us, then it's going to be another district, right? Because then everybody's going to say, well, why don't we have these resources? Why aren't we offering certain things to our children? Well, unfortunately, we don't dictate with all these costs rising, but we have to respond. And we need the community's help and support to see that and understand it. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to serve them the best way possible. So thank you for listening, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Harvey?
Thank you. Just wanted to point out some things that are in this budget that will help the students that might be overlooked. The multi-tiered support system, which thank Ms. Audino for explaining to us last meeting, and we've seen progress that program has helped students. So that's in addition to the tutoring I mentioned before. To the parent who asked, well, what can the parents do? Mr. Scotto has created packets on our website. There are tutorials for students who can get extra help at home. Every student has a laptop, and those laptops have resources. So we have built that into our budget, and that might not be a big part of it, but that is something that every student has available that they can avail themselves of. It's not just there's only a limited time in the day, so there are resources that we've built in. People have come to our meetings and complained about cursive writing. Well, we put together packets for students online to work on that. If that's what the parent wants to do, it's in the curriculum, it is taught, but there are alternatives. So I just wanted to point that out. And if parents have ideas for what we can be doing better, we want to hear them. Our email addresses are all on the board website, and we respond to our emails. If there's an idea, we've raised them in committee and incorporated them into our budget, like the tutoring, that people complained about that. So that was something we said as a board, we want the administration to build into our budget. So if you have ideas, the door is not closed to you. I just did want to point out, because there were comments about this room isn't full. Well, we did advertise this. This was on the district's website. I went personally to PTA meetings and told the parents that I interacted with during the meeting, hey, come out. If you care about the budget, come out. And I'm thankful that people did come out so we can hear from the community and hear where they're at and get their ideas. This is promoted on social media as well. So the fact that this room is not full, I don't take as a failure of the board. I take it as a lack of interest of parents. Even as I was driving here tonight, I pulled over to stop my neighbor to say, are you coming? Are you going to log in and watch? And, there's a lack of interest. So I think that is important to point out. And in addition, I think I did my math right, but in 28 years, Ms. Burns' tax rate matches exactly what inflation is. So that is exactly what you would anticipate if you're keeping up with inflation and the cost of these services. That's exactly what your taxes should be from 1997 to now. So I think that we are doing a good job of trying to keep the buildings afloat. You can walk around outside, go to the main entrance and look up, and you will see why we need a new roof at this building. Because every time it rains, you have a flood. So that's built into our budget. We need to keep up with these things so that we can keep educating our students in facilities that are not falling apart. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Mrs. Stanton.
I want to firstly thank everyone for coming out tonight and anyone that is watching from home. I want to start by saying that although no one wants to raise taxes, we don't wake up in the morning saying that's what we want to do as members of the school board. We, as a board and under the administration of Dr. Rocco, are playing a lot of catch up for the fact that under several administrations prior, there was a lack of spending, there was a lack of upkeep of investing into the future of the education, of the buildings. Now is the time that we need to take care of that. We all know that, the cost of eggs are higher, but so is the cost of steel, so is the cost of health insurance. Everything is raising, and education should be the last area that we're looking to cut or be cheap with. I know that it's brought up often, test scores. Okay, so let's compare ourselves to districts in the area. People say Princeton, West Windsor, Hopewell, Robbinsville. Hamilton's average household income is $97,000 a year. West Windsor's is $190,000. Princeton's is $184,000. Hopewell's is $177,000, and Robbinsville's is $163,000. That is substantially higher than our average households here in Hamilton. Is that to say that our children deserve less of an education? Absolutely not. But we have to remember that these households in Hamilton are not, it's a much more diverse district, economically, racially, socially. We have a population that is unlike these other surrounding districts that might have higher test scores. We have a much larger district than any of these other districts in Mercer County other than Trenton, where their household income is about $50,000 a year. So we're clearly doing better than they are. Is that how it should be? I don't know, but we are working hard from our place and our perspective to still give as good of an education as the surrounding townships that are all phenomenally wealthy in comparison to us, while not raising taxes substantially. As we know from what Ms. Atwood said, if we were to just go by these state numbers, we would be raising taxes, way higher than any other areas in the state, and we're not doing that. And as she said, again, the DOE website shows out of 96 comparative districts, we're the 5th lowest in spending. If we want to improve our test scores, improve our buildings, get ourselves to be at an academic level that we're competing with these surrounding towns, then we too need to pay more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stanton. Dr. Farrar.
I hate raising taxes. I can't even believe that I'm going to say this, but this is year 10 of my sitting on the board. And every year when we get to this point, I really don't like to make this decision. We have had years where we've raised no taxes. To Ms. Stanton's point, we have had administrations who have completely ignored our buildings. You can go back and look in the newspaper archives and see board members walking through West going, we need to fix this up, and then never voting to fix this up. You have to remember, Dr. Rocco came in May of 2017, and this board put on his shoulders, please pass a referendum to improve our buildings, and he did it. That was the start of our future. If we didn't raise taxes this year, if we kept it at 0%, we would be making cuts. We would be cutting faculty, we would be cutting aides, we would be cutting all sorts of things. One of the privileges of being on the board is being able to go into classrooms. And during Read Across America, I was in a kindergarten classroom at Klockner, watching the students do a foundations lesson, which is a phonics-based lesson, all of them with their boards, their whiteboards and their markers, looking at the word check. And the teacher said, what are the two sounds that we hear? Well, they knew, a ch and a k. And they wrote the word out. We are doing great things in our classrooms. Learning is lifelong. I can tell you, my test scores were not great. I went to school with a group of kids whose parents were doctors, lawyers, engineers. My dad was a mechanic. There were no books in my house. Trying to keep up with classmates who had everything that they needed, everything that they wanted, books in their house, it was a challenge. Some of the things that parents have to do is try to instill in their students a desire to push forward and to learn. My SAT scores and my GRE scores flip-flopped. My SAT scores, my English was low and my math was high. My GREs, my English was high, my math was low. What does that say? I still got my PhD. I worked very hard. I overcame eye issues in order to get that degree. You know, we see kids out on basketball courts all the time throwing baskets. They throw baskets and they throw baskets to get better. You have to instill that same kind of drive academically. If you want, I served a district in New York before I moved to New Jersey. It was a smaller district, but every school in that district had a team of people in their school who would attend board meetings and go back and report to their specific school community. That's a way that could work here. It could work here very well. We also have the Hamilton Township Community Supporting Education. They constantly put out information. They push out more notices than you can count. The Hamilton Moms page could be pushing out the same stuff. They push out stuff that they probably don't need to push out. They could push out that there was a budget meeting tonight. We're all a community. We all work together. Mrs. Harvey points out about the resources on our laptops. The other resources that we have in this community that can be reached through these laptops is the Hamilton Township Library. There are online newspapers, there's books on CD, there's amazing resources. There's a whole section just for students. Test scores are not the end-all and the be-all. And for people to come and complain about English language learners, I'm sorry, those parents pay taxes too. And I'm glad that we have those programs now, because there were immigrants that came in the turn of the century who never learned English. That's a myth that people who came here before learned English. They did not. Some did, but there were many who didn't. I have relatives that never learned English. And I'm going to tell you something that Mr. Kenka and I talked about, and that is that there are resources for senior citizens, people on fixed incomes, to get their taxes frozen. And maybe what we need to do is put out on our website, or ask the township to put out on their website, how to access those resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Farrar. Ms. Soto.
I'll try to keep it brief because, you know, my colleagues around the table have made some very good points. I do just want to add that, I am a product of this district. I graduated from this very school in 1996. Now my youngest is graduating this year, almost 3 decades later, and I look around, and a lot of stuff still looks the same. We're talking about decades of deferred maintenance we're trying to make up for. So many positive things have happened, and I'm thrilled to see us moving towards the future. But that's exactly what this is. Dr. Rocco asked me how I felt, when he presented the budget presentation to us prior to this meeting, how I felt about taxes going up. And I said, you know what, I'm all for it. I'm in the minority, raise them, because we need to make improvements. I said, am I gonna complain when I get my tax bill? Absolutely, just like every other resident here. But I see what we're trying to accomplish, and unfortunately, that comes at a cost. Now, to Ms. Williams' point, Mr. Kenka's point, we've done a really good job at trying to keep them low. At an annual increase of $100 per household, which yes, for a lot of people, still a lot of money. We're able to make significant changes and improvements to our district. We're able to make up for lost time. We're able to compete with our neighboring communities. And while our taxes do go up, as do our home values when we have better schools. I still see even the market slowing down, but in Hamilton, a house goes up, a house gets sold. People are trying to get here for the schools and the community. Add in a free preschool, and people are going to pay even more for our houses. We talk a lot about, academics and grades, and the best way to improve that is getting kids educated even sooner. So yeah, there are challenges to putting in a preschool and things, of course, we need to discuss and evaluate, but those are all being looked at. Somebody in the audience had asked earlier, are the right questions being asked? There are 7 people around this table, not including Dr. Rocco, who currently have children in the schools. We are personally invested currently at what's going on. We see it, our kids bring it home, all the information, and we want what's best. Yeah, my last one's graduating, but still, I am a member of this community, I'm a product of this community, and I want to see all of the children get the best education possible. I am a daughter of immigrants, English language learners, and I will say, until you have lived that life, you can't possibly understand some of the hurdles that these families have to face. And my mother was an educator, but it took a while, coming here from a different country, going to school over here after she received her education in a different country, to be able to work as an educator for the Ewing Township Public Schools. And even still, there were challenges at being able to provide me with information I needed to be successful, because it's just different. So we're here to take care of everyone in this community, not a select bunch, everyone. And we're asking for a $100 increase to make sure that happens. So I thank everyone for their time. And I just hope that we look at the bigger picture and understand that the investment we make today is going to help benefit the children now and in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Soto. Dr. McSheen.
Yeah, first off, again, thanks to everyone who came out, everyone who pays attention, people who weren't able to make it tonight, but do pay attention throughout the year, throughout the years, throughout the decades. I think we all know people like that who are always around and might not be out there, but they might be online or they might email us. And I think that's to be appreciated. I think we all appreciate them. Man, I struggle with this conversation a little bit. I mean, I agree with 95% of what everyone has said here. And one thing that the discussion led to earlier always never really feels right in my heart, in my mind, and it's comparing us to a business. That seems wrong. I hate the idea of looking at my child and thinking of them as some kind of widget or output and assessing their value based on what they learned or how their test scores are. And I don't think anyone meant it that way, but that's somehow, sometimes I think that's how it comes out, is that if our students aren't, really breaking the SATs and doing an amazing job and getting to the top Ivy League schools or whatever, that we're not doing better or we're not doing right by them. And I don't think anyone meant it that way, but that's what it sounds like as someone who does work in the private sector, where, that is kind of the way we think about it is, private companies, their job is to gain profit. And like, I'm kind of, I'm a person who I owe a lot of my success in school, or personally I owe it to programs like Head Start, which I was a Head Start student, that definitely prepared me better for kindergarten, prepared me to be in a district where a lot of my friends went straight to Ivy League schools, are doctors, lawyers, people I know and love still today and talk to all the time. And I would be remiss if I would think it'd be amiss if we didn't discuss things outside of academics, even though academics are very important. The reason I'm friends with these people still today is because I had opportunities to be in orchestra with them from 4th grade, where I started learning the flute, and I played that through college. Classes like art, where I'm no artist, but it did instill in me something that was a creative outlet. And I think if you look at a lot of productive people, people who are amazing at their work jobs or whatever, they have hobbies that they're able to support, things that are fulfilling to their lives, things that make them, that give them energy, enough energy to go back to work, to sustain their families. And yes, our job is to to make sure our students are proficient and prepared, but that preparation isn't always just math and reading and whatever else you want to teach them about history, which, super important things. It's also exploring, letting them explore, letting them see different types of lives, different types of people, experience different types of art, and understand how they can communicate themselves better. It's allowing students who need special student services to gain those services, to put them on par or in a similar path to, again, achieve those same things I just talked about. So I just wanted to put that on the table. And again, I don't think people meant anything by it, but it really does grate on me to equate a district like ours, which is meant, as a public school district, is meant to serve every student in our town to the best of our ability, right? That said, Ms. Stanton was kind of discussing, was it the home values that I forget which values you were talking, income. You were talking about household income. And before that, I was actually looking at the average property tax. And again, I hate to compare us to other districts because we have lots of, there's really important differences among us. But I think a lot of people in Hamilton really directly compare ourselves to our neighbors, right? So just looking at it so this is 2023, so it would have been the last cycle I think we have available. So Ewing is the closest to us at 7,500 or so, 7,590. Let's look at Lawrence, which is 8,646, and this is, again, average taxes on the average house. You can imagine that house values differ among towns, right? A lot of people point to Robbinsville. Their average tax bill on their average house is $11,823. Obviously, we have West Windsor in our county, and their average value is $15,396. Hamilton's is $7,146. And in fact, it's the lowest in our county other than Trendon. Just double checking that before I say that and it's wrong, but no, that's absolutely right. And as per at least this table from New Jersey government, the average Mercer County tax, property tax, is $9,043. So just kind of want to put that in frame. And I'm saying we're not paying enough, because I know I pay the bill too. I also grew up in a town was in North Jersey, a little more densely populated. And I mean, 15,000 is like probably a dream for what they're paying up there. So just want to put that in context too. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily have that experience of being in different areas, and I'm all for that. I'm all for whatever your experience is. Just wanted to give some numbers here, because I think sometimes our frame of reference is a little skewed, and it's not necessarily bad, but I think it is the truth that we live, that, you know, Hamilton is paying less property tax than basically every other town in this county. And I guess just on a positive note, I think, you know, you've probably heard before that a budget is a moral document, right? It kind of outlines what your priorities are, what you're hoping to achieve. And I just want to thank Dr. Rocco and the administration for trying their best to put that on paper. It's not easy. When people say go line by line, everyone here around the table reads what we spend line by line every month. That's not easy. If you try to go through everything line by line all the time, it would boggle your mind. Yet we do our best to, and I think that's why it's important to have a board, important to have an administration work together, and more important to have the community able to check those pieces and have those conversations, because we all have our own things we care about the most and have to prioritize. Just like this budget, we have to prioritize monetarily. And I really do appreciate the discussions we have on this, because that's the only way society works, right? We have to work together to do the best, and no one's gonna get everything they always want, and not everything's going to cost what we want. And just a very final note, and I think Dr. Farrar pointed this out. Because we live in an economy that sustains, you know, usually the goal is about 2% inflation, right, year on year. I don't know the last time people have checked their assessed values on their houses. I know mine has not changed since I bought my house. And because of that, when you look at your taxes, if you didn't raise them any bit, you would not get any more money, obviously. And so that's effectively a cut in your budget, right? So not raising the tax at all is cutting money from the district, because there are inflationary forces that will drive up costs. And hopefully they're not as inflationary as they've been over the last few years. Who's to say when or if ever that'll change? I hope it does soon, because it's rough, but just kind of laying out facts, I think, that are important for us to understand. So thanks everyone again for this discussion. I think it was really important.
Thank you, Dr. McSheen.
I just have one question before we vote, because there's been a couple people that have mentioned that we're only raising the taxes $100 per household. I was under.
On average.
Okay, on average. So
average.
that's based on your, like.
Based on your tax assessed home, not on your tax bill, you will see what your home is assessed for.
Right, because my tax
And
increase is not going to be the same as Dr.
No, but
McSheen.
if
It's
you
going to
saw on
be.
the explanation, it's based on I think it was like $114 and change, is based on your average tax assessed home, which I believe is what, 220?
217 or something.
217. then it is an additional $54.61 per each additional $100,000 assessment. So if your house is assessed for more than 217,
Right.
it would be an additional on that.
Right.
But the
I just
average
wanted to
Hamilton
clarify that,
household
because,
is
you know, when I
217.
heard, oh, just 100 a year, it's like, gosh, who wouldn't vote for that? But, you know, my house is going to be significantly more than that $100 plus whatever. So we're not talking about an increase for the people whose houses are, you know, bigger, larger. I have a large family. My husband's a contractor. We're going to spend a lot more. So I just wanted to clarify that, you know, like
Tax assessed.
most people would
So-
be like, oh yeah, $100 a year, that's not, you know.
Ms. Williams?
I'm sorry, that's a great point. So, but to ask the question though, based on the calculations that Dr. Rocco has there, are we able to then come up with, because we're saying on average 100, right? But just
So
for
it's-
devil's advocate's sake, let's just say, because you said every 100,000,
Every 100,000 in addition to the 217 is 5461. So you would add that to the average.
right?
So if your house is assessed for 317, 417, and so
Right.
on, you would add.
So,
And it's
so if-
assessed, not sold.
Assessed.
Right, assessed, not
Not-
sold.
Which is,
So a couple of years ago, we were asked, actually at this table, to put the calculation of what is the per $100,000 assessed value cost, so that each homeowner who might be listening, watching, can go back and see what their house is assessed at. And for every $100,000, they would then add $54.61.
so, and I just wanted to clarify that because you're right, I did say, I was one of them that said, oh, it's only like about $100, you know, a year on average. But to your point, and I'm not saying that $54 on every 100,000 isn't significant, but at the same time, at the assessed value, and depending on how much more, you know, over, it could be maybe, I'm saying $200 then a year. And again, I'm not saying that that's even significant.
Well, I wish
but-
we had an audience full of people so we can kind of ask the real estate specialists in our, oh, there you are. So what is,
But it's not based on what you're selling your home for. It's a tax assessment.
right,
That's what the township goes by. It's a tax assessment.
right.
It's on that card you get.
Right.
Yes.
Right, now, and that's where I think I was correct in saying none of our taxes are going to be the same. You
Right.
know, it's all based on what our houses are assessed at. And, you know, I have a larger home, so it's going to be assessed much higher. So for those of us who have higher assessed homes, it's going to be a significant increase. It's not going to be just $100. I just wanted that clarification. Thank you.
No, and I thank you. So I want to thank everyone for their comments. I would like to thank the community members that were here, as well as any individuals that are logged on watching, to thank you. Dr. Rocco, thank you for your budget presentation. You, as well as Ms. Atwood and your team and your administration. Doing the budget is not something that you do in a month or 2 months. This is a months and months long process. We did see the timeline, but just as soon as you finish your budget, you're looking to start next year's budget. So it is a constant, revolving thing that you're doing, and I know that it takes a lot of time and effort for you and your administrative staff, so I want to thank you for that. So we did hear a lot of things this evening. We did hear a lot of questions from the community members that were here, and I thank them for that. It's always good to hear the input from our community members as well as the board members and my fellow colleagues. So I have to say, there are so many drivers when you're looking at the budget. Dr. Rocco put it in, I think, perfect perspective. There's so many different drivers that you have, not only, inflation and costs that are going up, but I always try to look at it as a homeowner. As a homeowner, you have your home, you have your budget for your home throughout the year, and something might go wrong where you have maintenance, where you budget for items, perhaps HVAC or a roof or any other maintenance items that you have. Now, times that times 24 very large buildings. And you can see that you just want to make sure that you continue with the maintenance so that your costs stay lower. I know it seems like they're high because they're large items, but a roof for a home is going to be quite significantly less than a roof for a building like what we're in Steinert. So I want to thank the administration for, over the past several years, really working hard to try to drive those maintenance costs down by doing a lot of preventative items that we have put into place. Curriculum is always, and resources are always items that, in my opinion, are some of the most important parts of a budget, because you want to make sure that you have resources for your students, for students that perhaps could be struggling, for students that could be excelling, for students that need a little bit of help along the way. We hear a lot about data, and as we do always often use data and test scores as drivers, as well as, you know, looking at other resources, data and test scores are not the only thing that we look at when we're looking at our students' achievement. I just want to point out that sometimes a student's progress and achievement is not always measured on a test or on a piece of paper. So I always want to put that out, because sometimes we're looking at goals that our students have, and they're very individualized to them as students, and sometimes that progress is not always measured on a test, on one day in time. So I do have to say that I appreciate this very well-rounded budget. Obviously, as everyone and my fellow colleagues have said, no one really wants to raise taxes. That's not what we want to do. But unfortunately, sometimes you need to look at what's in the best benefit of the district. And I feel that Dr. Rocco and the administration have really looked and made a very well-rounded budget that looks at a lot of items, and in my opinion is hopefully going to help us down the line and in the future. Our children, we always say, our children are our future, and our future is very bright. There is nothing more, in my opinion, of a compliment. We have a lot of students here in Hamilton Township that graduate and decide to go off to college and decide to go into education. And I can't tell you, maybe I've just been here a little bit longer, but there's nothing more rewarding or, in my opinion, it's just wonderful to see some of those students that go through college, that graduate from here and graduate from college with your education degree and choose to come back here in Hamilton to become teachers, and then move on perhaps to become a supervisor or even administrators. So to me, that is one of our greatest compliments and our greatest achievements, because they are being mentored and they are being inspired by the amazing teachers that we have here in the district. So with that, I again want to thank you, Dr. Rocco, as well as my fellow board members for the conversation. But I do want to actually, Ms. Byrne had asked a question in regards to a 0%. What would happen and what would that look like? Dr. Rocco did give me some information, so I just want to put out, and I want to make sure that I say this correctly. Even if we went to a 0%, you would still have taxes raised because we're on a different calendar than the township. So you have half of what last year was, correct? Or a portion of it? Ms. Atwood? Okay. So just remember that you wouldn't have completely no taxes raised. But if you were to go with a 0%, you would have to find cuts in this budget in the amount of somewhere on the average of $5.8 million. $5.8 million. I am going to be personally honest, I don't know where I could cut $5.8 million in that budget. That's what scares me. So I just want to put it into perspective. Now, even at that, $5.8 million is what you are going to see in that tax increase. So I just wanted to answer that question for you. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Do I have any other questions?
I have a comment.
Hank?
When, when I first got on this board, it was many, many years of zero tax increases through the 90s and the early 2000 up to maybe 2005. And our buildings suffered tremendously from this. And the very first thing that I was pushing for was to make sure that we got enough money in our capital reserve and in our building maintenance budget to try to prevent this from happening. But we had to catch up. We had 15, 20 years of no increases and salaries going up, staff being reduced. So, you know, the trying to get us caught up to the maintenance in these buildings was a big task. And fortunately enough, we have a business administrator now that has really helped out with that, trying to get us into the position where, you know, we may not have to spend $11-12 million a year to try to catch up. Maybe we could just spend that just to try to maintain, to keep status quo, and we won't have to put out, and we won't encumber future boards with what was encumbered by not this board, but boards when I first got on. You know, it got to the point where, you know, it was almost like a joke. You know, when the kids walk into school, we were going to give them a bucket so they can hold next to their desk because we had terrible roofs in this place. But, you know, since then, all our roofs are now under warranty, and that costs money. And that's why we're doing the upgrades on the roofs now, because we don't want this to happen again. And for us to do that, it takes a big commitment to this board and for the community for us to be allowed to do this. So, and you know, like you say, you want to keep a zero base. Well, then we still have 24 buildings that are, half of them are over 100 years old that we have to maintain, and those costs rise. So when those costs go up, then we have to find the money somewhere else, and that's, you know, staff reduction. And who does that affect? It affects the children. So I think we're doing a great job, and I appreciate the board that supports virtually everything that the facilities committee brings forward to them. And it's a big help, and it's only going to help us out in the future. So,
Thank you,
and the
Mr.
future's now.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Kenka. Okay, with that, Ms. Atwood, roll call.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Kanka?
Yes.
Dr. McSheen?
Yes.
Ms. Soto?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
No.
Dr. Farrar?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, I'm going to move on to other business. Do any members of the board have anything for other business? I'll start with you, Dr. McSheen.
Not tonight, thank you.
Ms. Soto?
No, thank you.
Dr. Ferrara?
No, thank you.
Ms. Stanton?
Not this evening, thank you.
Ms. Harvey?
I would like to bring about a motion to untable the program of studies that we had tabled at the last meeting. I think it's important to have a discussion as to that issue, given the students are choosing classes right now.
Second.
Who second?
Jeez.
Okay, I would actually like to make an amendment to that motion, if I may. I would like to make an amendment to the motion of approving the program of studies to amend it to the program of studies that was presented to the board on March 16th with the addition of the half-year class for history, with the addition of personal finance as an option for in-person or online, and with the option alternative 2 for career explorations as a half-year course.
Second.
Need to vote on that one.
Vote on the amendment first and then vote on the other? Okay. Ms. Harvey?
Yes,
We're voting on the amendment.
Oh,
just
okay.
that the
just
motion is
amendment?
amended.
Okay.
Mr. Kanka?
Yes.
Dr. McSheen?
Yes.
Ms. Soto?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Dr. Farrar?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to open that up for discussion, if I may. Dr. McSheen?
I know we had a pretty decent discussion in our committee about this, and I think the only item that I didn't personally love so much, I like the idea of having a solid finance course, a personal finance course. I don't love the idea of it only being online. And I think, is that how we were proceeding with it?
No.
No.
The amendment is that the student would have an option to take it online or live.
Okay, so yeah, I think if it were only online, that's something I wouldn't really love. And also the only other challenge I had with that was if it was too early in their development, such that, maybe a ninth grader taking it isn't an appropriate time for most of the students, so.
And if I may, Dr. McSheen, I do see Mr. Scotto. Mr. Scotto, can you just add to that, only because I know that there's a section in it. I didn't include everything when I spoke about it, but there is something that addresses exactly what you're saying.
Thank you, Mrs. Thornton. Dr. McSheen, to answer your question, we took all of that into consideration in terms of the age of the student when taking the personal finance course, and we have decided that that course would only be for students in grades 11 and 12 because of a lot of different people sharing with us input from various stakeholders on perhaps students are a bit too young to start that personal finance formal studies. So with this amendment, whether it be online or in person, it would be for students in grades 11 and 12 only.
Great. Yeah, because I think that's a pretty good spot for most students. Obviously, there'll be some students who are more advanced in their age in grade 9, but I think on average, that's a good idea. And also, I'm just always for career development at any age, all ages. So I'm happy to hear that. And I thank Ms. Harvey for bringing this up at our last meeting, because I think it's really important to incorporate that. So thank you. That's all I have.
Mrs. Thornton, did I answer all of your question? I didn't know if you needed me to read anything else.
No, that was
Okay.
it. It was the 11th and 12th. I didn't
you.
explain it exactly because I'm referencing the March 16th in the amendment document, which does say that, I believe. Ms. Soto?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Mr. Scotto and Dr. Rocco and administration for really taking the concerns that were presented at the last board meeting and modifying the presentation based on the concerns that were presented. I feel very comfortable with what has been suggested, and look forward to our district students taking advantage of these courses.
Thank you, Ms. Soto. Dr. Ferrara?
So I just want my colleagues to be clear and understand the amendment. The amendment is taking in career explorations, personal finance, and the history class. We are not voting on the entrepreneurship class under this amendment, which was on the listing.
No, that would not be correct because it was on the prior motion. So everything on that prior motion stays. We just changed the terms of that motion, which would cut classes. And in place of the cuts, we have now added them consistent with the memorandum, which would be.
Except that Mrs. Thornton didn't mention entrepreneurship. She just said the career explorations, personal finance, and the history class.
Right, because those are the changes to the motion that was already pending. We didn't need to, because what we did is we amended that motion. So everything that's on that motion is still on the motion that was
Which-
on the previous agenda.
The
Yeah.
program of studies, the motion that was tabled. My amendment was to change and have the program of studies reflect the March 16th document that we received, personal finance, history, and career explorations. Everything else would be the same.
But entrepreneurship was a new class that is on that list that is in the library that was on March 16th, just a title, and now is out, has been expanded. So I'm not understanding her amendment to your motion.
Well, it wasn't originally my motion, that was the motion that was on the floor. And what was on the floor last time was the program of studies as printed in board docs, which would include the addition of entrepreneurship. In addition, on the motion, it called for the removal of 4 courses, if you recall, or actually it was 5 courses. So consistent with the amendment, we are still removing 3 courses. 2 are music and 2 technically are the study labs for ESL. Those are coming out of the program of studies because that's how the motion was written. However, for the 3 classes that were being cut on that motion, we are instead substituting 3 other classes. We're substituting career explorations with alternative option 2. We're substituting personal finance that can be taken online or taken live with that option to the student. And we're substituting the removal of ancient civilizations and medieval history with a separate, I forget the name of the course, but a separate history class for this that would be comparable as a half-year elective. So those removals are being substituted with additions. But everything else that had been in the motion is stayed because we did not amend that part of the motion.
Did you get that, Mr. Kanka?
That means entrepreneurship is added. It's-
Correct.
Yeah.
It's added.
So when we vote, we're voting that we're okay with entrepreneurship being added. Is that?
Correct. Yep.
So, okay.
Okay, got it, thank you.
I got it, but we had a lot of discussing about that.
I know we did, I know we did. Mr. Kanka and I were on the phone for 45 minutes today.
Talking about entrepreneurship.
But we're still going to have careers.
Career
for-
Career
so we're having to have
exploration,
both.
yes, it's a half-year course.
Okay.
Revises the entire course and places back into the program of studies under option 2. On our memo.
Okay. Well, I was out today.
Dr. Farr, do you have any other comments?
No, I think I understand it. I'll let Mr. Kanka
Ms. Stanton?
tease it out a little more.
No questions. Thank you to Mr. Scotto and his team for working with us to accommodate our desires for editing the courses to be appropriate for the classroom and our high school students.
Ms. Harvey?
I want to thank Mr. Scotto and Dr. Rocco for incorporating our ideas into this new program of studies. I think it's great that courses that hadn't been up to standards are now being replaced by a new class that is up to standards and does meet a need of students who want to devote the study of history. I also appreciate that the personal finance will have an option to be live or online so that students have the best of both worlds. If you're a person who does better with a teacher, you will have that option. If you're a student who just wants to work at their own and maybe take that course over the summer, that will be an option. So, and I am thrilled that Career Explorations is staying as a course because entrepreneurship, while a great course for an addition, is not a replacement. So I'm happy that students will have that option so that they can enrich their studies and be exposed to different opportunities that will advance them in the professional world. So I thank Mr. Scotto and Dr. Rocco for these changes and their teams.
Ms. Harvey? Ms. Williams?
Yes, I too want to thank Mr. Scotto and Dr. Rocco, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to go over it with us in the committee meeting and really explore, and enhance like the different options that we had that weren't there before. So I do appreciate you guys doing that so quickly, and also like honestly making it so that everybody is happy with, everything, all the options that are there. So I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Byrne?
So last month, I was not here. I had just returned from a trip to Peru. My son got married, but I was listening to and watching it on my phone, which I never do, because I'm always here usually. And it was really interesting. And to see the board in action, actually some of the board members making this statement more or less that, they were concerned about some of the classes and what was happening with them. And so I think it's a perfect example of what we as board members really can accomplish by being here on the board, coming together and saying, we're concerned, we have students in the schools and we like these classes and we know they're well attended, and let's table this and talk about it. And then I, was brought up to speed. And again, I do also, like the rest of the board, want to thank Mr. Scotto and Dr. Rocco for accommodating the board and their wishes, because I think that's a good example of how the board works. I did want to mention, though, because I was home, that when we have people in the audience, I could not hear what they were saying. So I was frustrated because Ms. Audino was giving great explanations, and sometimes I couldn't hear you. So I just want to make the recommendation that when we have our board meetings, or even a meeting like today, if we have a floating microphone that can go around to the people, so that, because again, we don't see a lot of people here, but maybe a lot of people are home. But I missed out on like half the meeting because we didn't have a microphone in the audience. So I just wanted to mention, through no fault of anybody's own, but because I was home and I was participating that way, that I think we may have had some other frustrated Hamiltonians who didn't hear half the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Byrne. Mr. Kanka?
First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Scotto for sitting down and explaining what I wasn't understanding about this whole motion. When I first opened it up, I saw 65 pages and I went, oh man. So my first call after that meeting was I called Mr. Scotto up and set up a sit down with him, and he presented me with, a bunch of pages with little sticky notes on them and stuff like that. And I actually did look at them, and I also reached out to Dr. Ferrara, and we had some conversations on, what was going on, and she explained a lot to me, and I really appreciate that. So it gave me a better understanding of what everybody was trying to do, what Mrs. Harvey and Mrs. Thornton brought up. And I reached out to them briefly, and I just wanted to thank you members, plus Mr. Scotto, for helping me understand what I was voting for here. And it just, like I say, like anybody else says, it takes a team effort to make us successful. And and that's what we're here for. When we have a problem with facilities, I get phone calls from people asking me specific things. But when I struggle with something, it's nice to reach out to my colleagues here and get the explanation that I need to understand what I'm actually voting for. And I also like to reach out to and thank Dr. Rocco for his patience with us. And I know, we could be difficult sometimes, but
What do you mean, we?
I know I could be difficult, but I would like to thank him for being patient with the board and and actually listening to what we had to say and some of the input that we brought forward. So, and again, thanks for everybody. Thanks, Mr. Scotto. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Kenka. And then I have no other comments or questions. Ms. Atwood, can you take us through roll call?
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Kanka?
Yes.
Dr. McSheen?
Yes.
Ms. Soto?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Dr. Farrar?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
You want a motion to adjourn, or are we?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
I gotta eat